Hey, what's up? The Cabinet Vision Guy here with another quick video. I was messaged through my Facebook page about how to add operations to create a rabbet for something like a finished back rabbeting into some ends and tops. So I've got two cabinets here, and what I'd done is I had created the part, or the cabinet basically, that has a top, a bottom, left and right finished ends, and they're just parts that I added to an empty object and gave intelligence to. And then I added this back, this finished back. And if we explode this out a bit, you can see that it's got rabbets into each of the parts. These rabbets are actually what we call slave operations, created by the master, which is on the back. If I look at the face view and edit the back, you can see I've got my dados here. If I go to my reports, you can see all the different parts that or operations that I have. And those will create the operations on whatever part it touches. Conversely, I went over here and I did the same thing, well, something similar, but instead of putting the operations on the part, on the back, I put them on the part. So I created dado operations on the parts there, so I could get through dados without going over any. So yeah, those are just a couple of ways that we can do it, and let's go through how I did that. So go to the copy of the room that I made, which has basically the same objects in it, just no operations applied to them. And we'll go through the process of creating these operations in both steps so that we can see how to do that. So this one on the left, we're going to do the master-slave operations. So what we're going to do, and this is actually quite simple to do, we're going to make sure we're in the face orthographic viewport. We can be in any one of them, but it makes it easier to right-click on my finished back, as we can see, and select Edit. And now I'm going to make sure that I've selected the correct face, which in this case is going to be the back face. And we can see the red outline here is closer to us. If it was on the front, the data would be on the other side, or the rabbits would be on the other side. So let's bring it to the back, and then let's start drawing the dado. We're going to click on this, and we're going to change it from a master no to yes. We're going to give it a width of 1.5 inches. And a depth of, well, we want it a little bit thicker than half an inch, so what we're going to do is we will create it at 0.75. Now what that does is that the width of the rabbet right here from the edge to the inside of this part will be a half an inch wide, which the way I've got it set up is correct. If your rabbet is supposed to be less than that, you should adjust for whatever values you need. The depth, we want that to be the thickness of the material that we're using. So by default, we can just put 3/4 of an inch, and we can adjust that later on. So let's go ahead and draw this, and we're going to draw the dados going in a clockwise direction, and you'll see why. So I'll click here, and I'll drag up, and you can see now my dado is on the right side of this little magenta colored line, and what that does is it shows me that, you know, I'm going the right way. And I click again at the end point here. It snaps to it because I have my snaps turned on, and snaps are right here, by the way. And there we go. I've got this first master operation put here. Now, if we look at it, just to go conversely, so I can show you what happens if I go counterclockwise, you can see it's put the dado on the other side of the line. We don't want that. So again, we'll just keep drawing. We'll draw this around. And we're basically done. We can add some intelligence now. We can click on this and we can change it so that the depth, the DZ, always goes to the parent DZ. And the reason being is that if we decide to change our material, let's say we change it from a 3/4 inch material to a 1/2 inch material, we need the rabbet to be able to adjust. So that's what we could do. We could go ahead and do that to all of them pretty quickly. You can see, just go to equation, type in colon DZ, and we test that out. It's okay. And we can do the same to the rest of them real quick. All right. Now that's just something that I like to ensure that we do. That we always use the correct thing when I'm the correct depth when I'm using a dado or making a dado. So we've got that now, and now this is a more dynamic solution because it adjusts for all of the values that are there. We could add in extra intelligence because we know that my top here, this top dado, doesn't actually need to go all the way through. So we could actually adjust or add an equation to the position X and the position, the length to adjust for that. But we don't, well, you know what, we'll go ahead and do that. I was going to say we don't need to do it in this video, but let's go ahead and do that. So I know this is a 1/2 inch wide dado here, so I could just put in 0.25. Oh, actually, sorry, 0.5 to make it a 1/2 inch. Now you can see it's kind of jutting over here on the side. So let's drop the length down by 1 inch to be 22.5. And there we go. Now the equations we would put on there, let's see. So I just opened the object tree just to take a look at some stuff. What we can do is we can actually look at Dado EX master, okay? And we can go here to this and tell it that the position of the X is, let's see, parent Dado EX master.dx. And since, that's not right. Let's look at that again. Let's see. Dado EX master. Oh, see, there we go. Let's go DX. Let's just copy this. And see what happens. If I go here. There we go. So now I've got that. That's a lovely feature. If you didn't see what I did there, let's go ahead and go back to my orthographic viewport where I can open up the object tree. And because I'm running dual monitors, this window kind of moves around a little bit. You can just resize it from the bottom and you see it snaps right where it needs to go. So I can expand this and select the different one that I want. Since the first one I drew was this one right here, that's the one I need to know where the value is. So what I can do now is I can sit here and realize that this is the second one. We can see that it has equations for the X and a static value for the dy because we set that. So I know that the second one is the second one I drew. Now I need to know that the length of this needs to be the width of my part minus the width of this minus the width of the third one that I drew. So let's go ahead and copy this. We'll select the DX. We'll copy. And I use the keyboard shortcut Control-C on my keyboard for that. And we'll go back to our second one and we'll go to our dy value and we'll set this to an equation now. We'll go parent dx, which if I look at it, that's the 23.5, which is correct. We're going to subtract the value we just put in, okay? And we're going to subtract that again, but we're going to go through here and we're going to remove this @3 modifier. That'll make it look to this first one in the list. And we'll hit test now, and now what we've done, when I hit OK and OK, this Dado master is going to look at the other masters on here and determine the length of that based off of how far it rabbits in. When we can do all kinds of other equations to get it right, but that's going to work for now. I'm not going to worry about this bottom one because you just saw how I did that. No reason to go over that one again. So let's go here, and if I now look in my 3D view and then explode this out, you can see now I've got the operations that simply. And you can see on my top where we had that Dado master right here, how it actually stops right where the end of the panel meets, which is exactly what I wanted. The deck here, however, kind of goes over a little bit, and I might run into issues on the S2M center, so it would really behoove us to go ahead and add those equations in there to make sure everything comes out the proper size, so that when I go to cut everything, it's all good. And the S2M center might actually take care of it, but I'm one of those better safe than sorry kind of people. The only problem we have here is now this, there's that little lip right there. So if you're running on CNC machines, that's great, not a problem. If you're cutting everything with like Dado saws or stuff, well, you wouldn't want to do that. So that's why we check out the other option where we actually put the operations on these pieces. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. So we'll go here to this second object, all right, and just like before, it's the same thing. Everything's Dado or kind of pushed in together, but there's no operations for it. So let's start by going to the end orthographic viewport. Let's right-click on one of these parts. We're going to start with the left finished end and select Edit. All right. Now, if I'm looking at this view right here, I can see that I'm on the back side. If I was on the front, you'd see it was on the outside, and that's not where we want our Dado. So we're going to go back, and we're going to select the Dado tool. We're going to set the width of this. Now this time, the width needs to be 0.75, and the depth needs to be 0.5. The reason being is because instead of making this go into where it's touching, it's already got a piece that's 3/4 of an inch thick, and that's rabbeting 1/2 of an inch into this end. So from here, I can now, again, drawing in a clockwise direction from this point right here, I can grab my my option. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, let's change this to Dado No, because we don't want it to actually be a master operation. So we'll draw in a clockwise position. And if I got that right, which sometimes I don't, sometimes I forget where exactly I'm supposed to put it. But if I got that right, and I go leave here, and I can see I've got the yellow there, so I got it right this time. But you can see, just like that, I've added an operation right there. And I've got my rabbets, nice clean, cuts all the way through my end. And that's great. So we can go ahead and do that for the right finished end. So we'll go Edit, and we'll be on the back here as well. And since this is kind of rotated from where the other part is, I believe we're supposed to put it on this side now. And you can see all my settings: 3/4 inch wide, 1/2 inch depth, Dado Master No. That's all saved in there. So now I should just be able to draw that guy in there. And there we go. All right, so just simply like that, we can get this. Now, this is a less dynamic way to do things. We could, from this screen, go into our object tree and start adding intelligence, because we can go here and we can find those Dado EX values and then call up the tree. Say we want to find out what the finished back thickness is. So we can go here to the DZ. We can copy this, find our Dado, find that width value, that's 3/4, go to equations and just paste that in and test it out, and there we go. So we'll be able to make it a little bit more dynamic more easily with the object tree here. I'm not going to do that for each one of them, but so you should get the idea of what I tried to do there. So being in the plan orthographic viewport, I can now right-click and select my deck and go to Edit. Now, the deck is slightly different because you see the red outline is here on the back, is below the green outline. It's not what we want. We want it on the front, and that has to do with how a top orientation is. Not a top itself, but the top orientation. So, when we do the top, you'll see we want to actually go to the bottom part of it, or the back of it. So let's go ahead, and this is the one where it gets kind of tricky. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I need my dado along this edge. So let's go ahead and do that, drawing in a clockwise direction again. And let's select it just to make sure, and it is 22.5, which is the proper width. So let's see what that did. Oh, see, I actually put it on the wrong edge. See, so great example. You can see I need to bring it along this edge over here. So instead of here, we're going to bring it along this one. So let's right click and edit. And let's go ahead and delete this one. And let's go to Dado and draw it along this edge. When I look at that, there we go. Now I've got it in the right spot. So if you make the mistake, don't get frustrated. Just take a moment to look at it and see where in relation to it is, to the operation, to the part is, and then just kind of put it where it needs to go. And you can see, since we're so simply drawing this, it's pretty easy for us to just get this done. Now, we'll go back to the deck, and you'll see it was along this edge. And if I go to my top, that's my deck, I'll go to my top and select Edit. And now I'm going to put this on the back, and I'm going to try the opposite edge. Clockwise direction. And that got it. So there we go. Now you can see how quickly and easily I just added the operations to create a rabbit right here. You can see that we can make them dynamic so that they will move around with our part, especially with the master operations and such. And there you have it. If you have any questions on this, how to do this, or if you have any suggestions on how a different way to do it, I'd love to hear those too. Just let us know on our eSupport website, and hope you have a good day.